那种修干毛的。Fat ass 欸，真的没有 feeling 的咩？你坐在我的 power bank 上面。
ass no feeling。
走嘛。
smack until no feel。
fuck 啦，你 crappy ass
crappy ass。
你不叫我随便。Oh you piece of twat。Oh you 雞巴 twat。哦。下車，下車
What?
，laugh 吧，下車。
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the uncle.
It doesn't matter，下車。
What the fuck,
It's now become your problem，下車。
bro?
你前面有一個地方可以按到，不要跟你那邊停路，真的 selfish fuck。Hello。
In front got lorry. Another in front
哇
got lorry.
，fucking day that all the selfish talk，come on。哎，这好吃哎，这5星雞飯。
Okay, then
Can you park your 雞巴 vehicle in the parking lot？
sit in front of him. You dare to come people in front? I call you champion.
敢，我唔敢，這樣。
I call you champion. 你被打我肯定笑了。
他有種啊，敢來。我給你打咯，不用緊啊。看你講死而已。你 OK 的，你 make sure 把我打死，不然你就完蛋了。If I made it out alive 啊，你就是 that's it 了。
People will do that.
啊，跟我上次撞車一樣。哦，你最好把我撞死，不然的話，when I made it out alive, you know the consequences of doing thing。叫我懂。All legal methods to sue。
We have like the insurance, all can claim. We were so close。他空到我，他就閃了，真的。一個人1600嘞，你要不要拿？一個人1600，他空到的話。最好不要喝酒，喝酒更好玩。
brake hard. Why do you like that? Move bitch.
Noisiest driver I ever seen.
Huh?
The most noisiest driver I ever seen.
You can choose to walk home on. Currently the choice, you made the decision, right? So you're gonna live and die by the sword, right?
Live and die by the sword.
奇怪啦，你们这个 modern generation 真是没有，就是一点idioms 都没有听过咩？
Maybe because we don't bother. More important with money, only the not
Fuck you
shit.
啦！
With money more important, then start of thing do shit one.
Live and die by the sword.
有钱就好了，管什么 item
Idom.
whatever is shit 啊。
哦，啊？
很靠近，
什么叫这样靠近？
你明白？
哦，他是 stupid retard damn shit.
不是
What does this red little arrow serves? 好，你没有 driving license，你不懂。
OK，
Do you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles stopping for absolutely nothing, where we can just turn right ourselves?
you need to wait for it to be green.
Why?
Now you can turn.
Government panders to the incompetence.
I drive without license.
Driving without a license will constitute a lot less penalty if you drive with one. That's the best part of the whole shitty thing. 你 drink driving, 你 drive without license 哦。我最多给你 fine 几千块而已，都不用坐牢，我干个的。
I did drink and drive that time.
You will get caught.
Good luck.
That makes it the point move. But if you ever get caught,
碰感。
不会啊。Without license 是多么容易的哦。You just get slapped with a fine only. That's about it. 除非你撞死人啊，最多你都不用坐牢的。
没有钱，you no money pay，有戏有碰感啊。
最近你没掰啦，
Exactly
一天
lah, it's the
一天
same
弄多少
thing.
钱啊？
It's the same thing 啊，看怎么看，你要出来是吗？
什么东西？
现在那个戏不敢讲不多。
啊，不可以看咩？
Then don't dare look away，起来。
也是很奇怪，你不会停红绿灯哦。
啊？
人家停红绿灯不可以左看右看哦。
我左看右看。
当然，traffic light got to walk around 的嘛，我不可能 blur 在那边，马 straight forward 的哦 ，accident how？ need to be observant 嘛。So if something move beside me, I turn my head， 我都没有错的嘛。你给他一个 smile 就可以了。Can I reach your bike tree? Stop in a traffic light for nothing. Eh, 那条弯了 ，OK， cool， 没有注意看到。哦，那I know how to ask me to turn. Tengah Boulevard leh. What does the boulevard mean?
I don't know.
You only got Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Green Day 的歌来的。 What?
It's called Le Quest.
什么 request?
The more in front.
有 more 咩 The fuck? Oh, I see. It's called request.
That's what I say. Nice bike.
Huh?
Nice bike.
不会。Hey, why you turn your head to look? 刚才讲别人。
Looking at the bike, I'm not looking at the person. The guy is literally straight at me.
你跟他做鬼脸哦。有种小孩子哭过，特别好笑哦。
啊？
我驾摩托嘛，睡停在那边，那个车停我旁边，然后小孩子在那边，小孩子在里面哭，特别好笑。那回来看过来，我那边。他们两个不认识的、啊。
Doesn't mean motorbike are friends.
没有 the way they will park just now。我不熟的，我不会park在这样靠近回家的，我会给他一点，给他一点 space。
I don't know. Malay people and Malay people click fast.
It's about not knowing the other person might do stupid thing and give way just in case.
Chinese people doesn't get along easily.
F down in England sees this at normal speed in a football match, right? He's got better eyes than anyone in the world. Sees right.
But anyway, they have a queue.
That there is the
Never take.
啊，
Never take queue.
都没有。
She's trying to take it that way.
Don't have.
Cook's left calf.
She
一
walking.
下来我就，他是最后一个下来的，我要赶着走了。
I'm saying to you is, no, we're not. This is right there. I'm in that. So his calf. That's what I'm saying.
妈他的车子把你闪开。 Working life。不是不喜欢当兵的咯，
啊？
不是不喜欢当兵的咯。
哦，去了 ORD 一样的。
And
The money.
sorry，
The money. More enjoying.
，Please remember.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Imagine I take it, I throw it back. You can always try. Bye bye.
Subterranean civilization be? And why might they have gone underground in the first place?
Where the ancient ancient Hebrews visited by time-travelling men of the future? Or were they mistaken? Was what they believed to be gods actually future spacemen? The idea of such ancient astronauts has been well documented in hundreds of different writings from many ancient cultures. Should we accept such evidence as realistic encounters? And if so, we have to ask the question, why are so many ancient writings pertaining to contact with the gods brushed aside? Quite clearly, there is an overwhelming amount of evidence.
Were the ancient Hebrews visited by time-traveling men of the future? Or were they mistaken? Was what they believed to be God actually future spacemen? There are two basic traditional interpretations of the Bible. One, a supernatural being influenced the lives of the early Hebrews. Two, the Israelites' God was imaginary. In most issues debated by opposing extremists, we find that the truth often lies somewhere in the middle. Maybe the Hebrews were involved with a real phenomenon, as the Judaic, Islamic and Christian faith advocate. But instead of crediting the scriptural events to an actual divinity, perhaps the Israelites were contacted by technological and biological entities, by spaceships and space beings. This explanation would satisfy many religious as well as atheistic adherents. It's not too surprising then that since the 1950s, a number of theories have been proposed that support this middle-of-the-road space-age view. We're dealing with three main expositions. First, the ancients mistook astronauts and spaceships for gods. Second, God is a super-technological spaceman. And finally, the angels were dispatched in UFOs by God. However, what if there's a different explanation? One theory proposes that these ancient astronauts, if they existed at all, were actually Earthmen, time travelers who came from a future universe or dimension. What proof is there to support this hypothesis? To begin with, we have biblical prophecy. In the scriptures, there are hundreds of detailed predictions directed by the prophets at certain individuals, towns, cities and nations. All have come true with amazing accuracy. How can this be? One possible explanation for this phenomenon is that of time-traveling spacemen who were in communication with the prophets. Besides fulfilled prophecies, the Bible also has verses depicting spaceships and astronauts. In 1974, Bantam Books published the Spaceships of Ezekiel, authored by Joseph Blumrich, a highly respected NASA engineer. In his manuscript, Blumrich writes about spacecrafts and spacemen encountered in the Old Testament by the prophet Ezekiel. Although originally he had set out to disprove the hypothesis that Ezekiel had seen a spacecraft, after a thorough examination, he was convinced it was true. In the story, Ezekiel was shown the future by God, who was riding in a unique and elaborate vehicle. He was given the task to deliver various messages. God was accompanied by multiple angels. Ufologists began to point to the possibility of interpreting this experience as witnessing a spacecraft rather than God. Ezekiel first saw the spaceship in 593 BC whilst he was exiled in Babylon. It was by the Sheba River that he looked up and saw a great cloud with fire flashing forth from its midst. 4 oblong structures were then seen descending from the middle of the cloud. As the vehicle came closer, the prophet could see on each structure 4 helicopter blades, 2 landing legs with round footpads, and 4 mechanical hands. Ezekiel then writes that he saw lightning darting back and forth among the 4 creatures. But perhaps what he really saw were control rockets being fired. Located on the inward side of each structure, they were used to position the craft for landing. After the vehicle had touched down, the prophet then spotted a large wheel by each of the structures. The 4 helicopter landing units were attached to the main stage of the spacecraft. occurred in the immediate future. Is there any evidence for this conclusion? We know that the biblical spacecrafts had two separately powered stages, like the American lunar modules, and that they were identified by the United States Space Engineer. Also, a crude model of the biblical craft has undergone successful testing at NASA's Langley Research Center, and Mr. Blumrich has secured a patent for the root system on the spaceship.
放好一点可以
These
吗？
facts favor the theory that these space vehicles came from a future
风声出来了。
Earth, from our future. Surprisingly, this is not the only case in the Bible that can be interpreted as possible time travelers. Although Ezekiel is the most famous and well-known account, other writers, including John and Daniel, wrote accounts of angels that could be interpreted as time travelers. Some ufologists believe that Bible messengers that were perceived as angels are actually human time travelers who have come to warn the world. Due to their limited understanding, the writers misinterpreted these experiences. Furthermore, cultural and religious bias at the time encouraged writers to fit their accounts into their own preconceived ideas of God and angels. Over time, through translations, any ideas on time travel was lost and accounts simply became the word of God. If the angels really were time travelers from the future, what did they have to say? When researching these ancient accounts, it appears 4 different types of incidents were told. Stories of historical wars, astronomical events, the discovery of codes in the Bible, and even of time travel encounters. Did these time travelers provide any other knowledge? In addition, there is the ancient Hebrew
somebody
code.
fucking explain to me.
If time travelers
I really need to
Hebrew
know
communities
why
with their knowledge
every
create
single
healthier
time.
and more sanitary
Cannot
conditions.
understand
When
me.
thinking back to the past, specifically before the 19th century,
What the fuck?
it's expected that
It's
unsanitary
something
conditions were
difficult, no,
commonplace. But curiously, this was not the case in the early Hebrew community. Medical officials were surprised to discover that the Israelites had reasonably modern health laws pertaining to body issues, leprosy and circumcision, amongst other things. As modern medical science knows, many harmful bacteria can be transmitted by body discharges. In the past, knowing of this was lacking. Despite this, the Hebrews had many comprehensive regulations when dealing with this subject. For example, a person must have easement outside camp and the excreta had to be buried. Individuals who came into contact with pathological discharges or other issues were considered unclean and were ordered to wash themselves and their clothes. Similar orders were also given with other conditions. When a person was found to have leprosy, they were expelled from the community. Once their quarantine ended, the infected person washed their body and garments, the scalp was shaved, and antiseptic was administered. Furthermore, all males were commanded to be circumcised on the 8th day of life. Why the 8th day? The probable reason for this condition is that vitamin K, a clotting element, is not manufactured in the proper amount until the 5th, 6th or 7th day. Since circumcision causes bleeding, it would make good sense to wait until the 8th day. How would the Hebrews have known to do all of these things? How would they have known to disinfect, or known to wait until the 8th day? Although it is possible that all these health laws were given to the Hebrews by alien spacemen, it's more probable that they came from future Earthmen. Time travelers would be fully acquainted with our complex life forms, as well as the languages spoken on this planet. With more advanced knowledge from their own time, they could aid the Hebrews with creating more sanitary conditions. This may explain why the Hebrews appeared to have knowledge ahead of their time. Did these ancient spacemen exist at all? Were they mistaken as God? Or were they actually of a completely different origin? From fulfilled prophecies to advanced health laws, could this really mean that these ancient spacemen were actually Earthlings from the future? Throughout time, there have been many intriguing time travel stories. One of the most puzzling accounts deals with a very brilliant Egyptologist, Joseph Bonomi, and a mysterious inventor named Samuel Alfred Warner. Between them, it is rumored they designed and built a real time machine based on secret ancient Egyptian knowledge. Hiding deep within the grounds and shrouded by trees stands a foreboding mausoleum, an imposing 20-foot tall with a pyramid roof. It's made from granite with a solid, heavy bronze door secured by a keyhole. Decorative accents line the door, furthering the air of mystery. The door's margin displays a rectangular strip of Egyptian hieroglyphs. Built in the early 1850s, it was intended as the final resting place of a woman named Hannah Courtois and two of her three daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. Very little is known about Hannah Courtois or about her three daughters, Elizabeth and Mary Ann. But for the last 150 years, they've been at eternal rest in a mausoleum at Brompton Cemetery, West London. During her lifetime, she'd amassed a fortune. Some said she'd been the mistress of kings, politicians, and rich, powerful men. No one knows who fathered her two daughters, but they died soon after their mother, and nobody knows how they died. More mysterious still is the mausoleum, standing 20 feet tall in the middle of Brompton Cemetery, and rumoured to be a time machine. It is rumoured that Bonamy designed Hannah's mausoleum, a theory given some credence by its pyramid-shaped peak and by the mysterious hieroglyphics inscribed on the walls of the tomb and on Bonamy's own headstone. The Victorians were fascinated with the idea of time travel, and some believed the pharaohs had discovered its secrets. Might Bonamy have learned the time travel trick during one of his expeditions to the pyramids? Gently opening the old iron gate of Brompton Cemetery is somewhat similar to breaking the spine of a book containing some secret London history. Well-known suffragist Emmeline Pankhurst was laid to rest here. Beatrix Potter also walked its many plots of land and penned names from gravestones to use in her work, these including decedents Peter Rabbit and Mr. Nutkins. In excess of 35,000 landmarks in all are available, rich and poor, known and forgotten. Hannah Courtois' tomb would be impressive for its imposing stature and cryptic veneer alone. It's the largest, most elaborate construction in all of Brompton Cemetery. But there's more to this story, much more, that it's secretly a time machine. London musician and Courtois historian Stephen Coates, the man behind some of the recent bizarre claims, states it's not a time machine, it's a teleportation chamber. In order to try and interpret the bizarre urban legend that's been constructed around Courtois' tomb, it helps to understand the complex and secretive life of the woman who ordered its construction. Born around 1784, Hannah Peters fled an abusive father at a young age and found work as a housekeeper and as a tavern employee. In 1800, a friend introduced her to John Courtois, a 70-year-old former wig maker in poor health who had made a fortune in the early banking business. Peters was shortly in his employ as a housekeeper. Within the year, she had given birth to the first of three daughters. She claimed they were indeed Courtois despite his age, although some suspected and made it known they believed that the friend who made the introduction, Francis Grosso, might have been the real father. John Courtois' illness is also ill-defined in historical accounts. Although it was rumoured he had a violent run-in with a street worker in 1795 that left Courtois